Hey guys, so I'm super stoked and happy to introduce you to another guest speaker on my channel called Tabita Dietrich. She's a spiritual business coach and she talks about how you can first master yourself and integrate all parts of your being such that you're free to create what you really want to create in the world, and then build a business that's based on the high spiritual principles, meaning that it's fully aligned with what you want to create in the world. And also, it doesn't just benefit yourself, it benefits the whole world. And how you can learn to protect your own life force such that you don't burn out, and how you can create a business that's autonomous and can stand on its own. So have fun watching. This is Jonas Erb, and in this channel we talk about authenticity and personal growth. We provide tools and ideas that help you gain clarity, freedom and fulfillment in your life. If you haven't yet, consider subscribing. So, hi, I'm very happy to welcome you here, Tabita, on my channel. Very stoked to have an interview with you here. And like I've been working with you for quite some time, and it was really fascinating, the kind of changes that I've gotten from working with you and the whole philosophy that you kind of bring into the world in terms of like your kind of spiritual evolution, but also your financial evolution, creating a business that's actually for the benefit of the world, the kind of like for the benefit of humanity, not just like this kind of inner little ego thing, I want to just get big and just make money, but actually creating something that's really coming from your heart and really like advancing humanity in a way. And so, yes, I'm very happy to have you here. First, I would like to have you just talk a little bit about your story. What was the life's journey that brought you here? And yeah, so maybe from when you started, kind of like when you were a job, when you started your business, but then also what happened like in the 2 years when you were completely away, and then the next phase, just like a little introduction about yourself for people to know what's like kind of who you are, yeah, so basically understand you a bit better.
Oh, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to do this. It's always great to connect and to bring that to, other people's audiences and your audience. Yeah, I think we've known each other for over a year now, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Or
Yeah,
almost a year. I think
yeah,
so.
pretty much,
Actually, yeah,
yeah, yeah,
that's
exactly
totally
1 year,
true.
I think.
Yes, exactly. It is actually 1 year exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, time flies. But I'm truly grateful and very honored to do this. Thank you so much for having me. Yeah,
Yeah.
I can kind of briefly touch on my story, but in terms of how I got started on this journey, I would say it probably started when I was 15. And I basically had to decide whether I want to live or die, and kind of going through so much trauma in my life, I was more on the side of like, why am I even here? You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I had to find a way to live. And that's what I did. And that's kind of how my search began. And then I basically spent the next 3 years studying everything that you can find on planet Earth, going through all the books, and to every seminar, and doing shamanic quests, and like really diving very deeply into healing my physical body, my nervous system, upgrading my emotional body and my mental state, and to overcome the trauma. And that was very, very, like, it was a lonely time, because as a teenager, it's not that that was like 15 years ago that a lot of people are like, oh yeah, I'm totally joining you in on that, because most are just busy with being a teenager, which is how it's supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
But I couldn't really afford that. So yeah, and then when I was 18, there were people just like inquiring, how did I get started on this path? And I had a lot of the people that I was considering to start any kind of learning some method, or some like diving deeper into some of the systems and things that I've learned over the years. And I always realized that there are certain aspects missing in kinesiology. There were certain aspects missing in systemic therapy. There were certain aspects missing. And I was like, yeah, I need something that is like more, that includes all of that and more. So I didn't stop there. But a lot of the people I got in contact with, they were like, hey, how did you do that? And let me have a little bit of like what you're doing with your clients and how do they get so quick results? Because I realized it doesn't take you 5 years or 10 years to get over your trauma. I did it in less than that. And so when I figured that out, how you can collapse the time of the transformation for a person from like years into maybe a year or even months, like I got really good at realizing what actually works and what doesn't. And yeah, that's kind of how I got my first clients. And I was still in college back then. And so I had to decide, and my mind was really set to study, and I had all the grades and everything was set and I was accepted. And then I basically had to make the decision, and I realized that studying and like kind of trying to fit into the traditional educational system is not really my path, and it wasn't that appealing to learn and study more, mainly things that didn't actually interest me anymore. So I just took the leap and I started my own business. With the few clients that I already had. And because I didn't have like a lot of financial resources, I didn't rent a room like most of the people do when they're like, okay, let me rent the physical space. And I was actually advised by many of the people that I knew back then that that's the way it's supposed to be. And that's really how I stumbled into the online thing. And that was back then, that was just 13 years ago. It wasn't that type of a thing. It wasn't like, oh yeah, I'm going to start an online business now, like a lot of people are doing today. It was literally just the next step for me that I was able to do. So I built my website and I started working, and the people came. And I would say one of the big reasons why my business took off in the beginning so quickly, that's not a usual thing, was because first of all, I really knew what I was talking about, and I was able to write about all of these things so clearly that people understood. She is not just saying some stuff and throwing some concepts out there. She really knows what she's speaking about. And that
So
was
just on
really
this
like,
one question, because
yeah.
it's very difficult for a lot of people to actually get to that point. And have you got any idea or insight on why you were able to tap into that clarity so soon?
Yeah, because I've lived through it and I've worked with people. Like initially when I started, the first few clients that I had, I didn't start out by getting paid for the work that I did. It was just like, okay, this worked for me. And if I can overcome so much trauma in my life, then I certainly can help other people do the same. And it was just like a theory. I haven't proven that besides just helping myself. So I made it my mission to prove that it can work for other people as well. And when I saw that it did, that's how I was able to be like, okay, and now let's make a business out of that. And so that is really what most people kind of miss. They start implementing a strategy or a certain tactic, or they're learning all of these modalities and get all the certificates, and there is nothing wrong with that. I think it's really, really important. But the problem is if you haven't actually digested the information and you have practiced it for long enough that it becomes an actual experience, it's not embodied. And you are all about embodied authenticity.
Exactly.
And that's really what makes a massive difference. And so for me, that was like 3 years of building myself. Like I didn't do anything else besides, okay, I'm going to go to school. Then I went back home. Then I did my art. I had my first exhibition. And then I basically slept between 4 to 5 hours every night, got up again, went to school. And besides that, I did every single thing to advance myself and to evolve. And I did nothing else for 3 years. I didn't visit my family. I didn't go out. I didn't even really meet my friends. That was all that I did. And that was a lonely time, but it was a really, really important time because I knew my shit inside and out. And that was important. It was like that preparation time. And then what I simply did was just transfer the knowledge that I had through my work into my writing. That's really all marketing is about. It's basically what you're already embodying, and what you're doing with your clients is what is supposed to be in your marketing. And a lot of people are not doing that. Then they start writing about stuff that they don't really know anything about just because they read it somewhere or a course taught them this is how it's supposed to be, but it's not embodied. And every lived experience you can just start typing or just use a dictate function. I mean, there's so many tools in today's technology world that you can use. Just use a dictate function and start talking about, hey, today's session was da 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 da, and you know, your computer is actually typing the words, and then you have a new post. You put it out on social media. You can actually do it for free. That's all that it takes. And so that's what I did. I didn't use the dictate function. It wasn't available back then, but that's how I do it today.
Yeah.
And so, and then I just started sending out newsletters, you know, and I grew my email list, and that's how people came. That was all. It's really not that difficult when you're doing it in the right order, like the steps in the right order.
Yeah, I think this is really, really key, and I think this is very important for a lot of people to really understand that when you've actually lived through something and it's actually embodied, it's actually something that you've experienced. It's not just like a mental concept of I've heard that and this must work because it sounds so interesting, it sounds so good, it makes so much sense. No, this is not the same thing as actually feeling it in your body, in your whole being, understanding with all of your heart that this is what you've experienced. This is how it is, not because you think it is this way, because you've experienced it. And so I think that's really what you're talking about there.
Yeah, and also people can feel that, you know. The key to gaining someone's trust is not in, it doesn't lie in having a lot of time or touch points, what a lot of people want to make you believe. I had clients sign on with me. They paid me multiple 5 figures, multiple 6 figures, and they've never heard about anything that I did before. They just came across whatever, the video, the post, whatever it was, some piece of content.
Yeah.
And they knew, like, she's the real deal, because you cannot fake that. People will feel whether or not you're real, you're authentic or not. And they will quickly understand, like, if you can really truly, it's not even about holding space for someone, because if you are living that embodied authenticity and you're co-creating with life, and we get into how to do that in a little bit, but like, if you're doing it this way, then you can literally predict every single step on someone's journey. So when my clients ask me, yeah, you know, I'm a little bit afraid and I don't know what's going to happen, because they're literally walking into the unknown. But I've already lived through all of those things and all of those experiences and all of that transformation. I can tell them exactly, this is what's going to happen next, and this is what's going to happen. And it happened like that. And that's what gives them the trust. And that's something that is happening instantly. It doesn't take months or years. You know, if someone is going through a rough time and I can tell them, look, that is going to last for another 2 or 3 days, and then this is going to be the next state, or this is going to be the result, and this actually happens like that, they're like, well, you were right, what's next? You know. And you cannot fake that kind of embodied authenticity, I want to use, like your words, that is something that requires living through those experiences. And I think that's why your work is so valuable, because a lot of people are too much in their mental element. That's important as well, and not so much in their body.
Yeah, beautiful. And so when you built that business, there was something dramatic happening. Can you talk a little bit about that? And what was the main thing that you kind of like learned there, or like what was the transformation happening for you there?
Yeah, I mean, it didn't start at the beginning. It started 5 years into my business. I was 23 at the time, I think. And I worked a lot. Like, I really worked a lot. And I also enjoyed my work. It wasn't that I didn't enjoy it, but I had to learn a valuable lesson, which was to protect my life force above all else. And I didn't understand that concept back then. And so I basically kind of sacrificed having that kind of, you know, all the material things and the success that comes with the business and the freedom and all of that. And I was young and I was foolish, and that's okay. And I was too much caught up in like how my life looks like on the outside. Like, yeah, I made it, I'm successful, and I have that multiple 6-figure business, and I have all the things. And then life gave me the lesson that I needed to kind of remind me that this is not really what life is about. And I went on vacation, and a friend of mine hid drugs in my bag. That's the short version of the story. But I ended up in prison in a third world country for something that I didn't do and didn't know about. And so I spent 2 years innocently in prison, and I basically reinvented my life and my business. And so that was like the superficial reason, you could say, or the lesson, but like behind all of that, the lesson that for me really came back to was that there is like this outer evolution that's happening in everybody's life. And then there is what's happening on the inside. And for me, because I was so occupied with looking after everyone else but myself, I couldn't take the next step in my own evolution. And those 2 years gave me the time and the space that I needed to complete my life's purpose. And that's what I did. And then you can say, to put it in simple words, the transition that I made was having a business that simply ran from my personality and my skills to a business that was much bigger than just myself, basically co-creating with life and have this something that is beyond what I could ever do on my own. And that was the transition that I made during those 2 years. And I could not have made that transition if I would have been stuck in the same place, in the same role, with the same people, with all the same things that I did. So I got that life reboot that completely deconstructed everything that I believed in. And I actually didn't put myself back together, but obviously I did, but it wasn't like, okay, it's just me. It's like, if you're going through trauma or any kind of shock, it takes about 2 or 3 months for the shock to just process. And there is nothing that you can really do to get out of that state. Like, there is healing tools and things and whatnot, but your body still needs the time that it needs. And it's the same process when you go through something like that. And it's like you're just in that zero zone of nothingness and death until this new spark comes from within. And it's like, okay, the new software is installed now, and you can, we can start this thing all over again, but on a new level.
So say 3 months into prison, that's what happened, 3 months into prison.
Yeah, it was about 3 months. It was about a 3 months process where I was nothing but death. And then after those 3 months, that was like when this different kind of awareness started. So before I was very much caught up in that like individual perception of how life should be. And, when you're mastering your first 3 elements, your physical, emotional, mental, body, that's kind of how things work. And you see through a narrow lens. It's still a wide lens compared to like the ego mind that a lot of people like to, live in. But it's also narrow in terms of, I didn't put myself in like a much bigger perspective beyond just my life or the people that I cared for or the clients that I worked with. And then after those 3 months, it was like, oh wow, I see how small my life actually was compared to what I'm capable of and what I could really accomplish way beyond just myself. And so I made it my mission to reinvent my life and my business into something that is much bigger than just me. And what I did basically was creating not just one business, creating multiple companies that function completely autonomously, meaning if I die today or tomorrow, or if for whatever reason, I'm probably not going to end up in prison again, but you never know what's happening, right? The business can still live on without me. And it can be a movement on its own. And that's what I built for the past, how many years now? 5 years since I've been out. And so that really started within like that time period, those 2 years when I was in prison. And I would say the most valuable lesson that I got out of that, first of all, is there are several, but one of the most important aspects is, yes, you can choose how you look at whatever is happening in your life. And that's important in terms of how do you choose to experience the experience that you're in? And at that time, I didn't have any other choice but to just look at things differently. And I could have cursed every single day. And sometimes that's just how I felt and what I wanted to do. And then I also understood that even though I couldn't change my circumstances, I can change my perception. But it doesn't mean that when I'm out there, that's the same kind of approach that I can use, because then I had to change my circumstances because I didn't want to stay where I'm at. And I think a lot of people, when they have those big awakenings, and it's like, whoa, everything is possible, and you can just quickly get yourself into a state of, oh, it doesn't matter what's happening, you know, I'm fine anyways. But you're kind of missing the connection to what's happening in real life. And you kind of, I call this, you like to just escape into that heavenly being state, which is not very beneficial. And so one of the main concepts that I always tell a person is, if you are looking at your life and you are not happy how your life looks like, then you need to change it. And saying, oh, I can meditate whatever your state I want to be and meditate it away without changing what needs to be changed, that's not going to work. It's going to come back and bite you in the ass. And if it's really truly the case, like in my case, I couldn't escape. I would have been shot if I tried to escape. Like, I was just stuck there for 2 years. So I had to change my perception of how I experienced reality. And without actually escaping the lessons that, you know, that were important. And one of the really important lessons that I learned back then is, everything starts with integrity. So if I'm doing something that I wouldn't do if a million people were watching me, then I'm just not going to do it. And that was the ultimate test, because there it's easy to just get caught up in, oh, let me just use a phone and call my family like everyone else does, and it's illegal. It's going to bite you in the ass. And it certainly did for everyone who tried to do that. Or, oh, let me just kind of try to, you know, use that shortcut. It's going to bite you in the ass, because prison is like life, but on a much smaller scale. So everything that you're doing is going to come around within 1 or 2 months. And then you can't say, oh, why did that happen to me? Well, you just started the whole freaking process literally with just one thought 2 months ago. And so for me, it was a massive test to just stay true to myself and be the person that I chose to be, no matter what. It started with, I could have used an easy excuse to not exercise because, well, we don't have weights. All the men in the men's prison have weights, but we don't have any. So I don't need to exercise. Well, there is no reason not to. I can use my body. I can use my own body weight. I can use bottles. I can use whatever I can use. And that's what I did. Well, it's hard to exercise because I didn't eat. I didn't have anything to eat today because there is no proper meal. Well, it's not an excuse. You can still do whatever you can do in that moment. Or I don't have any water, so therefore I'm not gonna, you know, take care of myself, or I'm not gonna shower. Well, then you find a way to get water or store water. Like, there were so many different challenges where you just had to make do and decide in that moment what you can make happen and stay true to the choice that you've made for yourself. And in a lot of ways, and on many days, I didn't feel like it. It wasn't convenient. All the circumstances were against me, but I just made the choice over and over again. And that built one of the foundational pieces of like how I'm running my business today. And what I taught you as well is make sure that every single time you're taking an action, that it's the right next step for you, that it's in integrity with your own values, with your vision, your mission, and the promise that you've made to yourself, which is a very personal thing. Your why is your why, and no one can say something against that or even support you in that. It wouldn't matter, you know. It doesn't change your decision. And that's unshakable. And if you have that, you keep going no matter what. And so these, I would say, are the most important lessons I got.
And so it was also kind of, as you described, it was like an environment where basically the excuses you could come up with were so tempting in a way, but at the same time, if you can actually in this environment let go of them, then you get much more pure and pure and pure. Because
Mm-hmm.
in there it's like you will see what's gonna come back to you, and you will also have a very good reason. You can say, I can just not nothing matters actually. I'm like, I can just sit around all day, not work out and do nothing, because like what's the matter anyways? I'm in prison, I can do whatever. But then this is like the point where like this is not about being in prison or not being in prison. It's about living the life I want to live, doing the things I want to do, doing what's in integrity with me, doing what's actually what I want in that very moment. And even though I could not do it and I have a lot of excuses, feeling inside and seeing like even in this prison situation, I still want to do what actually feels most true, what I really want to do, right? It's kind of like this element of staying true to yourself, which you might have like sharpened in that situation. Would you
Yeah,
say that's true?
definitely. And yeah, I would say that's true. And also overcoming your own worst enemy, which is
Yeah.
yourself, you
Yeah.
know, and the resistance that's coming up daily for every single
Yeah.
person. And in there, the good thing in there is that you cannot get easily distracted, because there is not a
Yeah.
lot of things that you can distract yourself with.
Mhm.
At least for me, everything was like a spiritual test.
Yeah.
It was a mental battle that I had to win. And once I won that mental battle, I was it was like a journey that went deep, deep within, with
Mhm.
all of these spiritual battles that you have to fight. And the next mental round, the next mental battle that you had to win to pass the test, and to uncover the next gift.
Mhm.
That's all
Mhm.
that I did. And in the beginning, 2 years seemed like a very long time, until I
Mhm.
laid out a plan. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to write this book, this book, and I'm going to do this. And I finished 2 years with I wrote like 7 books, and not on a computer, all
On
handwritten.
paper, yeah. Wow.
And I wrote some of it on a computer, because I managed to get a position at the school where I was teaching young children and adults as well. And I was able to use the computer there. And
Mhm.
I typed as much as I can possibly type in the computer, stored it on a flash drive,
Mhm.
that I had to keep there with the officer. But when I left, obviously, I got to take it back home.
Mhm.
And I used every legal trick that I can use to kind of make the best out of a really bad situation. And that's
Mhm.
something that you have available no matter what.
Mhm.
And understanding that you are your own enemy, there is no one else against you, like it's
Yeah.
you and only you.
Mhm.
That's, I mean, that's real no matter where you are, but it's even more real when you're in prison.
Mhm. Mhm. Awesome. Yeah, and so just very quickly, and then I want to go a bit more into like what you're teaching. So what happened then when you came back? What did you build? What was your business about? What was the main
Yeah,
change? I
so
think you touched on it already.
yeah, I told you about like co-creating with all of life, but for me, when I came back, it was very clear that the business needed to be bigger than just myself.
Mhm.
And so when it's about the evolutionary process, when you're into personal development and healing, it's so important to get all of those aspects and elements integrated, which is like your physical, emotional, mental, spiritual, financial aspect. And then you probably dive into your creative aspect, and then you dive into your relational aspect, and then you dive into your sexual aspect. And then hopefully you're like, okay, I have all of these elements covered, and I'm fully embodied because I have a conscious relationship with all of them.
Mhm.
And that's what I accomplished. But then for me, after that, I was like, so what's next?
Mhm.
And I realized that a lot of people, when it comes to business, make their business dependent on them, which I did too. And
Mhm.
that was like basically why my business died with me when I ended up in prison. So
Mhm.
when I came out, I made it my very mission to have a company that is not dependent on me. So
Mhm.
I have 3 companies now, and 2 of them are fully autonomous. The other one is a personal brand, which I don't want to be autonomous, because I just like to do it. And if I die, it can die with me. That's not a problem. It's fine.
Mhm.
But the other ones, they can live on without me.
Mhm.
And understanding that my responsibility doesn't just lie with me and like making it happen for myself and making the big money. I actually don't give a shit about the money. I care about what the money can do and the impact it can have, how many lives it can change, how many children it can feed, how many new homes can be built for pets, all of these things. And for that, you need a lot of financial resources to make that change. So I built all of the companies autonomously. And one of the very things that we integrate, whether we work with entrepreneurs or we work with companies, is making them understand that nothing that you do can actually expand if you're leaking life force. And you as a person, you have a life force, the planet has a life force, and the company has a life force. And how we are basically looking at it is your life force consists of 5 elements. And one of the elements is time. So if you're leaking time, you're leaking life force. The other element is money or profits. If you're leaking that, then you're leaking. The other one is creativity. If you're leaking that, you're not going to be excited and you're not going to think like an artist that always walks into the unknown and just creates for the pure pleasure of creating. You're always going to be attached to an outcome, which is going to stress you the fuck out. That's the reason why so many only money-focused people are stressed out and burnt out, because they've lost that aspect to their true essence. And the true essence of every person is being an artist. And then obviously the other important aspect is that you're actually on purpose, whatever your purpose is. You don't just have one purpose in life, or your company doesn't just have one purpose. You have a purpose for yourself personally, then for your community and your clients, and then for the planet. And what's the highest good for all of us. And so it's all about creating those win-win-win situations. It's for you personally, for your company or yourself, for the people that you work with, and for the planet. And then the last aspect of those 5 elements is your relationships. And I mean, these consists of more than just one level, because it's the relationships that you have with yourself, physically, financially, emotionally, and all of the elements that we just mentioned. But then also the relationship that you have with your clients, with your employees, with your community, with the planet, with the land, and its ancestors. And all of that is what we take into consideration to have a business that can actually expand. Because if your container has cracks and you're leaking, you cannot sustainably expand. And you're going to feel that. You're going to feel that you're like, oh, I never have enough time for all the other things I want to do. Meaning your relationships are not being nourished, because the only thing you're focused on is money, money, money. And then you think about all of the linear things of how to get there, but you lose touch with the magic, which only comes in if you're actually connected to your creative aspect. That's the artist within you that can come up with the most brilliant ideas, because it's your most expanded state that is like, I don't give a flying fuck whether or not this makes me money. And that's usually what is like this next invention, or this whatever, this new thing that is just going to expand into different market spaces, or this innovative spark that is missing. If you don't have a connection with that aspect of yourself, you're going to drown in competition. And so that's kind of how we analyze all of whatever we're doing, and what we emphasize on, because that's the first thing that you need to look at to have a stable foundation. And that's basically how I built all of my companies, and how we help entrepreneurs and companies build their company. And so an interesting thing is happening when you look at those elements and you bring those foundational pieces in place. You first of all get back your most precious commodity, which is never money, it's time. And you stop sacrificing yours or anyone else's or the planet's life force just to make money. And that's basically what got us as humanity into a lot of the mess that you see on the planet. And that is what needs to be fixed to make a real and lasting change.
And it's also kind of like, it feels really like balancing out all your kind of aspects, and like basically appreciating all your aspects, because so many problems and burnouts and like people getting stuck situations are actually happening because people try to solve a problem and say like, I have this problem, I want to solve this, but then they're only focusing on a tiny problem, tiny part of their life, and think that if they achieve this, like if they can succeed at this and change this problem, then they're gonna be happy. But then
Yeah.
they realize that they've sacrificed all the other things, and then they realize they have another problem, so they're running there, only focusing on this, and then this part gets solved, but all the other ones are back down because you didn't actually integrate all of them. And
Yeah.
I think this is really one of the big keys of why people burn out and why people are basically not really advancing like wholesomely, because they are focusing on one thing and they're always losing on the other parts of us aspects of themselves.
Yeah.
They're all going down because they're not appreciated anymore. They're like, I don't have
Yeah.
time for this, I don't have energy for this. And but this is actually the reason why the energy is too low for everything to combine. And I think this is one of the most important keys really to understand here, that if you include all those 5 elements or all those aspects of yourself in your journey in creating anything, in creating your business, creating your life, creating relationships and so on, I think this balance is really what is going to make you able to actually include everything. But you have to look at everything in the beginning and not just one piece by one piece.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And it can feel like a lot of work. People are like, yeah, but that feels like a lot of work. No, it's not. It's like if you make time to eat, sleep, and drink and exercise, which you should, then you can make time and space for cultivating a conscious relationships with the rest of those elements.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever that means to you, that's an individual, personal thing. There
Mm-hmm.
is no right or wrong way to go about this, because every person is different. It's what brings you joy, how you
Yeah.
want to implement those changes.
Mm-hmm.
And the interesting thing is, once you do that and you understand all of those aspects, you automatically let your company become bigger than just yourself, because it can actually grow beyond just you.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I always like to say, and what kind of most people remember, is I tell people it's not your business. Your business is its own creation. It's like a child that you give birth to, that you give
Mm-hmm.
the right nourishment so it can grow.
Mm-hmm.
But then it goes out into the world and it becomes its own creation, its own being, it's its own person.
Mm-hmm.
Your business is its own creation. It's not yours to keep. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what a lot of people got so wrong when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to business and a company. They think it's their company. And
Yeah, yeah,
then they make it
exactly.
all about them personally. I have to change so the business can change. I'm like, fuck that. Why should I change so the business can become better? If I want to make a change, I want to make a change because I want to make the change for myself. I don't want to be codependent and tied to my business. Like my business success
Yeah.
only comes when I change. That's just bullshit. Just give the business what it needs, and you do you, and the business can be its own creation. So just give it away to the world. Don't be attached to it. Treat it like a business. Give it all the things that it needs, which is basically, you need smooth operations, you need a multi-million team, and you need those people to handle the daily operations, which means you need to hire people that are way smarter than you. And forget about that you're the only person who can do what you can do, because that's what a lot of people think, and why they never actually hire the right people. Or then they do hire employees, but then they're like, oh, I have to train and babysit them all the time. Yeah, it's because you make your business dependent on you, and your ego is attached to your business.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
if you cannot fulfill that role and show up in that role and be the best person in your company, and like be the the boss
Yeah,
and the
the boss, yeah.
CEO, exactly, then you're like, you have no identity anymore. And this is something that I learned in prison as well, because my identity was taken away from me. And I'm like, I'm actually not my business. I'm not even a coach. I'm not even a mentor. I'm not all of those roles that I fulfilled before. I'm just my own person. And I want to be my own damn person. So even though I'm a CEO and, technically you have all of these titles, I don't give a shit.
Yeah,
I'm the same person, whomever I'm talking to,
yeah,
however
exactly.
much money you make, it shouldn't change you as a person.
Exactly, yeah. So, so I would like to talk a little bit about the elements themselves, like the 5 elements that we were talking about. Um, because we said we have to integrate all of them, but then also there might be times where you're kind of like growing more in one of those areas and then in others, but you don't lose the big picture of like having to take all of them into account. And then just could you quickly kind of, because some people, they might not understand what you mean with those elements and what they could do just like today, or like as an idea to start actually expanding in those elements of the physical, emotional, mental. So could you quickly give some inputs for people? So how can they expand on their physical element, emotional element, mental element, spiritual element, relational element, just for them to get an idea and maybe know, like, okay, you know what, actually I've always known that there is a part of me that I've not appreciated. Okay, it's this element. Okay, now actually I know it's kind of that area, and I can start gonna do something right now.
Yeah, I love the question. That's really, really important, because it all comes down to practical steps. How can you practically do that in your life? So what I see people struggle the most with is, like, they make all of these big plans of what they want to do, and they completely overwhelm themselves because they realize they need to schedule actual time for these things. And I would be very real with yourself, how much time you actually have every single day. And I would choose, if you know that you are not working out and you should actually start working out, don't just do it because you think you should. Find a reason why you want to do it.
Yeah.
And then schedule however much time you can give. If it's 15 minutes, stick to 15 minutes every single day. Being consistent 15 minutes every single day for a week gives you more results than wanting to get a 1 hour workout done when you can't. So for example, 3 years ago, or 4 years ago, I had like 2 hours every day to work out. So I went to the gym and I worked out for like probably 90 minutes. And then when I didn't have that time available anymore, I'm like, okay, I need to change something. And my body also needed a change, because I got too accustomed to the things that I did. And I changed up all the things and routines and whatnot. And I didn't enjoy it anymore. That was another thing. So I had to find a different way. And today I get the same intense exercise done in 30 minutes that I used to do in 90 minutes. And so you have to be smart about those things. It's never about that you have to put so much time into it, but if you make a commitment, it always comes back to investing time and money. That's just it. And it doesn't need to be a lot, but start with whatever you can start with. That's all. And once you do that, there is a first inner resistance coming up. We talked about the resistance part already, which is natural. But once you get over that resistance and you just fucking do it, you get over yourself and you just do it, you realize that, oh, okay, I actually enjoy it. Once you find the right thing that works for you, don't just do something because somebody tells you this is the thing you should do. Find something that really, really brings you joy, and do it for the amount of time that you can do it. And so you can start with a workout, and then you can start with a 15-minute meditation. And if you
so the workout is for the physical element, right? Then the meditation would be for the mental or emotional element, or both of them.
Usually how I do like a spiritual practice, we always include all of those elements. Like we include sound, which is for your emotional body. We include breath, which is for your mental element. We include the spiritual aspects, where you can just be silent and not think about, like, basically just breathe and not focus on anything. Don't even think, just sit in silence. And we include you can even include your physical like exercise into that spiritual practice, and you can just schedule that for 30 minutes every day, and you have all of those elements on board. That's what all of our clients kind of learn and start to embody. And every person can make 30 minutes a day a priority to get this done. This is like, you make a commitment to yourself and you do it.
And so you say the emotional element is related to sound.
Yeah.
Why? Can you say why that is? Or how is that connection happening?
Well, if you think about it, when you're the happiest, you're at the concert listening to your favorite band, or when you're sad, you're listening to a song that is like just getting all of your emotions going. When something is deeply, deeply touching you, it's usually related to sound. When a person is experiencing massive grief, you cry, you make a sound. When you're experiencing massive pleasure, you make sounds. So that's just how your emotional body kind of comes to life. And so you can either sing, you can use singing bowls. Like there are a lot of different ways that you can incorporate that, which is why that's such a personal thing. Not everyone is going to choose the same thing.
Okay. Great. So physical element would be kind of workout, getting in contact with your body, your physical body, using your physical body. Mental element would be kind of like getting in touch with your thoughts and the thought process is like stilling your mind, or at least listening to your mind, taking your time, like connecting what's happening in this like mental aspect of yourself. Emotional would be like what is vibrating in my body in terms of sounds, emotions, how do I feel, like what is the kind of color of my inner world in a way, how this vibrates, kind of like, so this yeah, emotional thing. And the spiritual is, as you said, something like kind of trying to be still and connecting to something that's beyond those mental and emotional parts, right? Kind of like something deeper, or what is that?
Yeah, so you have to make a distinction between the etheric element, which is the stillness, and your spiritual aspect, which is more about fire. So you can use a mantra where you speak, out loudly your prayers, your intentions, or you're using anything with the element of fire that is connected to your spiritual body. And then you have another aspect that we usually include when it comes to a spiritual practice, which is the element of alchemy, or I call this the creative element, which is all about either dancing, creatively expressing yourself, or you can include the element tantra and have that sexual aspect integrated as well, where you basically have your your sexual and your creative element fully merged and just expressed. And you can combine all of these things, and then you can include your breath again, and you can do a tantric breathing journey that leads into your next creative expression. Like there is so much that you can play with, and it's gonna change. And I think the funniest or best way to approach this is like just listen and ask yourself, what do I need today? And do that. Don't make the same thing every single day, because then it's probably going to bore you. It's not going to be fun anymore, and you probably don't need the same thing every day. So if your physical body needs a little bit more time, you spend more time with your physical body. If you need to sit more in silence because your thoughts are just running rampant, then you just spend a little bit more time breathing and not thinking anything. And so if you have to ground yourself, then I would suggest that you start with your creative element and go to your physical aspect. You do that last. You kind of go from above to below. And if you feel like I'm so caught up in the daily responsibilities of my life, you probably want to start out with your physical exercise and then go into the emotional, mental, spiritual, etheric, creative, and then lastly into the void of nothingness. And you just stay in that expansive state or that timelessness for a little bit before you head into your day. And so that's how you kind of cultivate that conscious relationship with all of yourself and with all of life.
And so just to kind of also to end it, but also to kind of summarize, the elements are also in a way going from more physical or dense to less physical, right? So basically physical, emotional, mental, it all gets like less physical, because emotions, you can feel them in the body, there's something kind of physical to them. Thoughts, they're like just running around somewhere here, but still maybe they're not even here, that's just something you experience. And then spiritual is maybe something that's beyond yourself, or the way that you perceive yourself with your thoughts and emotions. And then even the ethereal is like, it's like stillness, it's something even beyond. But like going to like honoring that there's different aspects of yourself and different kind of like densities of what you've experienced, and integrate all of them into what you're doing in your life, into kind of like, yeah, basically in your life path.
Exactly. Yeah, that's beautifully explained. That's how it works.
Nice. And so just quickly to have people understand what you're doing now. So basically, if people want to look for you, or maybe take coaching or programs with you, can you just quickly explain what is it that you're doing? What are the programs that you're offering, and how could they find you?
Yeah, so probably the best way to start out is to check out pioneeru.com. And we help people on all of those levels. I'm not coaching myself anymore, but we have a lot of very experienced coaches who teach all of those aspects. And you can either start by integrating a conscious relationship with all of the elements that we've talked about. We have a program that helps people with that. It's actually a monthly membership. And then we have people who want to advance their business. It depends on what's phase they're in. And then we have people who actually want to build out the daily operations and build their multi-million team. And we help people with that as well. And then we also work with a lot of companies, which is a different aspect altogether. But I would say, yeah, PioneerU is definitely the place to be. We have a lot of free resources. I think over 40 hours of free video content that people can familiarize themselves with all of the things that we've talked about, dive more deeply into that. That's definitely going to get them where they want to be. They can learn a lot. Yeah, that's that.
Great. Yeah, so yeah, there's to kind of like end on the whole interview. I would like to ask you a question, which I like to ask people. And this is basically, I feel that everyone has some kind of like specific gift that they bring into the world, that there's something unique, really like unique, special, that they kind of feel that they've got a connection to, or that's their essence. And I think with me, it's like this authenticity, this finding out what is true for me, what isn't true for me, and really understanding that, getting very clear about this, and kind of having other people get more clear about these experiences. And just like from the top of your head, what do you think is your special gift that you bring to the world, or kind of like this essence, that's something that you're so passionate about, that's really coming out of you, that's very specifically you, that you share with the world?
Well, for me, it's more about presence. You know, when you're cultivating that relationship with all of life, it's not so much that I need to do a lot of the pushing and the planning and the, you know, all of those things. It's I like to call it a synchronous vortex, because it's like you can't plan those things. You're just always in the right place at the right time, meeting the right people to get all the things beyond what you can ever imagine by yourself. That's kind of how I live my life. But that took a lot of getting out of my own way, making this about myself, and instead learning to co-create with life in the way that we talked about and beyond. And then a lot of really amazing things are happening. So
Yeah, I
that's
love
kind
that
of my gift.
presence. I love that. So thank you so much, Tabita, for this interview. I really enjoyed having
Thank
you here
you.
speak on the channel and all the insights. So yes, any last words you wanted to say?
Oh, it was a
Closing.
pleasure. Thank you so much. You know, I really, really admire and appreciate you. I think your work is so important in the world. So I want to acknowledge you and thank
Thank
you
you.
for that, for being that person, for going through all the embodied states, and that's not always comfortable. You know, you're not escaping that. So thank you for being that person.
Great. Thank you so much. Okay. And for everyone who's listening, I will link all the links about the programs in the basically in the description below. And if you liked the video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more of those videos and support my channel. So thank you so much, Tabita, and I wish everyone a very great day. Goodbye. Hey guys, so I hope you enjoyed this interview, and I encourage you to check out Tabita Dietrich's work. I have some links in the description that you can check out, and she's really an amazing coach. I've worked with her for a couple of months, and I've had really, really crazy breakthroughs. I learned a lot personally myself, but also in my business. I got my first sales within like the first couple of weeks, and it was just amazing. So yeah, check out her work. There are also affiliate links where I may earn a commission. And also just go to her page. She has a lot of free videos, I think 40 hours of free videos, and just check out what she does, what she says, and just see if it resonates with you. I've experienced that it can be very, very powerful to just break through your kind of beliefs and just open the potential for what you want to create to come into your life very quickly. So yeah, check out her work, and if you like the video, please hit the like button, and please support my channel by subscribing to my channel. And I encourage you to watch some more videos. On this side, you are going to see the one that YouTube suggests you should watch because you would like it, and this one is my most recent video. So have fun watching and have a great day. Goodbye.